Hello, friends and neighbors. My name is Samuel Trapp. You are on International Flavor, and it's possible you're listening to this on damradio.com, and uh, you are welcome to comment. This is being live streamed on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and also on my International Flavor YouTube channel. And later it will be recorded straight to my International Flavor podcast and might be played at damradio.com, where I do a live show every Sunday through Thursday from 9 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, which means Chicago time, basically. And you can listen to me there. You can join in. Now, I'm doing this show live and commentary, and you can, if you're watching this on any of those platforms, soon you will see a link where you can link on that through streamyard.com/T as in Thomas, X as in X-ray, B is in Bravo, R is in Romeo, V is in Victor, X is in X-ray, U is in uniform, 5, Y is in Yankee, V as in Victor. You can type that into your web browser bar, and you can link directly to this program. And if you do that, then you can be shown on the screen and have your own little TV program with me. And we can talk and ask questions. Now, I do this on my Russian channel pretty frequently. I have a Russian speaking channel called International, well, same thing, Международный вкус. And that is done, and I have a lot of people on that one. That one's quite a few more people are there, and that is I get commentary all the time. A lot more. Oops, I clicked on the wrong thing, and I don't want to do that. Sorry. Well, maybe that'll tell you why. And we want to go to this other stage and put me there on the international playing around with the settings over here and messing it up. So today I wanted to talk about a couple of things in the law that just drive me freaking batty. I'm creating some timelines and stories, and sometimes I want to make sure that people understand where I'm coming from with these. So, as you all know, or many of you know, I believe that there's a good amount of corruption in the government, and especially in the government in Missouri. I believe that there is certainly corruption in the Missouri bar, and I want to talk some more about that. I have done programs in the past about corruption in the bar, specifically as it relates to the alleged nonpartisan judicial retention and management plan, which is anything but nonpartisan. It's, in fact, extremely partisan. It is controlled completely by the Missouri bar. And so, if you believe, of course, that the Missouri bar is nonpartisan, I suppose you could agree that the process has an opportunity to be nonpartisan, but that would be anything but independent of the fact that it is controlled by the Missouri bar. So basically, in Missouri, judges are being selected by the Missouri bar. Meanwhile, the Missouri bar is also targeting attorneys, judges, people to get rid of. And they do this through little known activities like something called the Missouri Client Security Fund. Now, there's a difference between the Client Security Fund, which pays out. So, if you're a Missouri resident and you're listening to this program and you want to know how you avail yourself of the activities of the Missouri Bar Client Security Fund, well, you can only do that if your lawyer is dead, if your lawyer has passed away, if your lawyer is incapacitated, he gets put in the loony bin, anything like that, or he's in an accident, in a coma, or something like that. Uh, those people are incapacitated, and or this attorney, he or she has had his license suspended or revoked, or he or she has been disbarred. That would be the other method for availing yourself of this client security fund. And then, if you do this, all you have to do is watch for any lawyer that dies. And if that lawyer represented you, all you have to do is submit a request to the client security fund to get your money back, whatever amount you paid to him from whatever period you would like, and say that he stole your money or he misappropriated your money or she, that they took your money and didn't give it back and that you feel you should have it back. Then, without the lawyer being present, now this also works for any lawyer who has been subject to discipline at any time, and you can file a complaint with this little known committee called the Client Security Fund, and that fund will give you back your money. And don't worry about having to tell lies about your attorney. You don't have to, because the attorney is not permitted to defend himself. Obviously, if he's dead, incapacitated, he can't defend himself. And if he has been suspended, revoked, or disbarred, he's not permitted to defend himself. He gets no defense. There is no defense. There's only your side of the story. It's like a grand jury in the state of Missouri. Only one side gets to present any evidence. And so the evidence is whatever they say it is. Plus, they will appoint for whoever is making this complaint a lawyer if necessary to make sure that you get your money back, and you make sure that this is tailored so that the little client security fund committee gets the very best impression of your story. And all you have to do is allege that your lawyer took your money and didn't give it back. Okay, now allegedly, this should only be used in cases where the attorney misappropriated your funds, stole your funds, took your funds and ran off to Zimbabwe and never came back, or something like that. This is not allegedly for fees that are just a fee dispute. So you can't come in and say, well, I thought I owed him this and he thought I should pay him that. That is a fee dispute, and that will not work. And it doesn't matter the time stretch. It can be from any period of time. If he represented you 10 years ago and you find out that he lost his license, you can make claim to this client security fund to try to get your money back. Now, they either will or they won't, but it depends on whether they like or dislike your lawyer. So it's a very, very slanted process, heavily in favor of the claimant, especially if they're trying to create a scenario whereby the attorney cannot come back into the practice of law without jumping some high hurdles. And what will happen is if they are a dead lawyer, then hopefully they will notify every past client of that, hey, we have this pot of money in Missouri that you can avail yourself of to get back your money, and all you have to do is say that your lawyer misappropriated your money. Now, there's something called the Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel in Missouri, which attacks and destroys lawyers who they feel have violated the rules. Now, they don't attack everybody. They're very, very selective. If you're in a big firm, you'll never get attacked unless I don't know, murder somebody or steal somebody blatantly at gunpoint or something. Then they'll come after you. But if you're in a big firm, they won't touch you. But if it's a middle of the road smaller firm, they'll go after those guys all day long. And so if they do, and a lawyer gets taken down a little bit, and he loses his license, gets suspended, or whatever, then they will send you a letter. They will send out letters to all the former clients and say, hey, we have this pot of money. Please come in and file a complaint against this lawyer, because we expect you to get your money back. We want you to feel good about the practice of law. At least that's what it says in all of their paperwork. They want to make sure that there's a good public perception of lawyers. And this can be found at Client Security Fund. CSF is the name of the acronym, Client Security Fund, and their paperwork and documents. You might have to do a little bit of work to make sure that, after your lawyer has passed away or something, to make sure that you find the proper method to file your complaint. But once you file that complaint, you should insist upon, them appointing you a lawyer and that sort of thing. Well, obviously, if you listen to my tale, you can tell that I am telling it partially facetiously. But I am absolutely earnest about what this committee does. This is a committee appointed by no regulation in the state of Missouri. This committee is not created by statute of the legislative branch and then signed by the governor. It is not part of any, what do you call it? Administrative law, administrative regulation enacted with a chance for commentary and putting this in place that the governor would implement through the executive branch. So each branch of the government creates their own procedure for establishing new law rules that apply to whatever it is they're attempting to regulate. So if the executive branch regulates a particular item, how to get a license to run a restaurant, how to, I don't know, what to do with your driver's license if you have it taken away, if anything like that, you'll have a governmental agency that will then issue regulations. The executive branch issues regulations, right? And so those will be issued. And then there will be a chance to review them and comment on them. They can't just say, tomorrow we're doing this and it's a new rule. They have to introduce the proposed rule. Then there's a period of time where people get to question the rule and they get to discuss them, and there may or may not be a hearing on this rule. And then the rule is implemented, and then there's all kinds of ways for trying to get rid of the rule and all kinds of things like that. Now, that's on the executive branch side. On the legislative branch side, they create statutes, they create law, they create real law. So they can create a law that says, here's what we say about you getting a driver's license, here's what we say about whether or not your your house has to be painted green on St. Patrick's Day, whatever. They can introduce a law, and if they pass the law and the governor signs the law, it is now a state law, but those things are implemented by The legislative branch, basically, they start there, and then they're approved by the governor. I know this is a basic commentary, for what they do, but I want to make sure that everybody understands where it's coming from. Well, then there is also, so we've gone over statutes and regulations. Okay, there's another thing called rules, and guess who makes rules? Rules are put in place by the court. And in Missouri, those are Missouri Supreme Court rules. And there's a whole list of them. Tells you procedure of how to you can carry out a case in criminal court, procedure of civil procedure. And there are whole books of how these rules get put out and what they do. Well, this client security fund has not been put in place by any executive order. Doesn't exist because of that. It has never been any sort of regulation put in by which would be an executive order. Basically, that's a regulation that they put into place for review and comment, and then the governor directs that, right, or through his staff, of course, and they put in these regulations. Well, it is not part. This client security fund has no regulation because it's not. The Missouri Bar isn't run by the executive branch. It is a quasi-judicial Missouri entity that is run by them, run by itself, basically. But the executive branch has no control over the Missouri Bar. Zero. Okay. Then you could say, well, maybe the legislative branch has implemented some rules to create this client security fund, which is frankly what they do in a lot of other states. There are regulations or law, regulations or legislative acts that allow for the creation of and the servicing of this a sort of client security fund, different in each state, right? Each state has the right to create its own client security fund if they choose to do so. Most of them choose to have either an executive order or a legislative order. So, but in the state of Missouri, the Missouri Client Security Fund is not by regulation. It is not by legislation through the legislative branch and signed and approved by the governor. And guess what else it isn't? It is created by no rule of the Missouri Supreme Court. There is no rule that says this is what the rules are for lawyers to adhere to. This rule creates this client security fund, and this rule has to be followed. There is no rule related to this either. And so this client security fund has been created outside of any regulation, rule, or statute. So it basically has zero governmental power. However, it is used to destroy people's lives. And here's how it goes. I've told this story before, but before you get to this story, you have to understand why it is important. So the Missouri Bar was created long ago. I forget what year, I once knew. And it was created by the Supreme Court, said, we want to create the Missouri Bar. Okay. And it will, it's a self-help thing, for lawyers. And every lawyer has to be a member of the Missouri Bar. It's required. You have to be a member of the bar. But the bar was created by a rule, but none of their procedures are law. None of them are, there's nothing there that says the Missouri Bar here's the rules you have to follow or anything like that, because they're just committees that work on their own. Like there'll be a committee for, I don't know, attracting young lawyers. There'll be a committee for, helping to schedule the Missouri Bar, whatever. And that type of thing. But no laws, no nothing that relate to it. So they created this Missouri Bar Client Security Fund on their own, in the late 60s, I want to say. Missouri started this fund. They began, or somebody did, and Missouri started to hear about it, and not long thereafter created their own. But they didn't do it properly. They didn't do it through a necessary executive grant of power, a legislative grant of power, or a Supreme Court grant of power. They just took it upon themselves. And they don't have that type of power. And so they don't create. The Missouri Bar is nowhere in the places where you create your own rules. Well, but they have also created something called the nonpartisan uh, judge selection, retention and selection of judges, nonpartisan selection of judges, which they created on their own. And they did it to help out. And I've already done a full show on that topic, and so I won't do it again. Not yet. But I will mention it because it is also without the grant of anything. But later, that was placed in Constitution. They knew they had no authority, so they better do something with it pretty quick. And so what they did was they introduced a constitutional amendment, and this nonpartisan judicial selection is now part of the Constitution. And it's a nonsensical proposition where the Missouri Bar gets to select judges, not like it is typically so the executive branch will propose or provide some candidates for selection, and then they have review and approval or consent of the legislative branch of the judicial committee or of whoever in the state legislature, all by some sort of, but not in Missouri. And Missouri has actually introduced this and created this farce for a lot of other states to follow as well. So, with zero grant of authority, they have taken and usurped this power, and here's how they select judges. A group of 3 lawyers appointed by the Missouri Bar, so not by people of Missouri, but by 3 lawyers in the Missouri Bar, and God knows where they came from. They're the ones who've licked the ass of power for a long time, and now they're the ass of power themselves. And so everybody has to, lick their ass to get submitted to be a judge somewhere. So if you want to be a judge, I propose that in the beginning you should always be licking the ass of the Missouri Bar Board of Governors, because they appoint the 3 people that appoint or select who's going to be a judge, right? Now, in this committee, there's another 3 people that are appointed to be also part of the selection committee. But who are they going to provide? In all seriousness, these 3 people, what do they know? You think that in hell, they're probably lawyers too that have been selected from the bar, hopefully in an effort to counteract what's going on, but they don't. We all know who it's going to be. And by the way, the 7th member of this little club is whatever justice of the Supreme Court is Chief Justice at the time. And so, and that's how you select them. And then as you go down to the next level, if you're selecting someone in the Western District, you'll get the Western District Appellate Court judge. The head judge in the Western District Appellate Court will be guy number 7. In the Eastern District Appellate Court, it'll be the number 7 over there. But so basically, you have 4 heavily embedded lawyers who like to have their asses kissed, and judges by one judge, at least one judge, that likes to have their asses kissed all the way through by whatever person wishes to be a judge. And if they've, done the proper licking for the proper period of time, it's possible that they will be nominated to be a judge. And then when a vacancy comes open for a judicial position, 3 people will be selected by this ridiculous committee and sent to the governor for approval. So here we do it in the reverse. The Missouri Bar gets what it wants, and then the governor might have a say in it, but his only say is picking one of the 3 selected. right? And if he doesn't pick one of the three within a certain period of time, I want to say 30 days, but it might be 45. I don't remember. Could be 60. I don't really recall. But if he doesn't pick one, then the committee picks them themselves out of the three. So the committee has all the power here. Nobody else has any power. And this committee isn't picked by anyone. Arguably, the governor has a little bit of say in picking one of the three candidates, but it should be the other way around. So we're never going to get rid of this because now it's a constitutional amendment in the state of Missouri and it's a mess. And so those people will, of course, retain that power, and taking a power away is 10 times as difficult as getting it in place. As you can see by the way they weaseled into this alleged nonpartisan judicial selection plan. There's still some elected judges in Missouri, but more and more often, especially in the bigger communities, they are relegating this job to this judicial selection committee, which is bad. And so they send it to the judicial selection committee, and that committee then gets to pick. So if they say, for example, we want a bigger city, let's say it was Osage Beach, and they say, well, we want judges or Camden County. We want judges in Camden County to be not elected. We want them to be appointed through this non-political process, through this nonpartisan process that we have. Yeah, nonpartisan process. And we want them to be selected in that way. Then that committee would be basically 3 people in the county, 3 people appointed by whatever bar association for that county or by the bar itself, and a chief judge from whatever area of that is. So same concept on a smaller scale. And we've seen this happen in Springfield. We've seen this happen in the city of St. Louis. I believe in Kansas City, it's the same thing, that the bigger the community, the more likely it's going to be appointed by this process. Nobody's elected. And they claim it's because they don't want the judges to have to spend time being elected or spend time getting the opinions of the voters, or and it might lead to them not being willing to grant a ruling in a case during an election year, and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, they can't get the job without kissing the butt of the committee that does the appointing, and the community, the citizens, have zero say, no matter how you slice it, anywhere in any of these nonpartisan states. There is zero input by the public. And so what you get is a career ass licker of the Missouri bar and of power. So the power consolidates power, because we all know that the ass kissers get promoted quicker than anybody else, right? And so that's especially true in the legal fields and in judges' fields, unless you keep it on an elective basis and you let them be selected by the people. But there's something, they call it same thing on retention of judges. But on the retention of judges, what they do is that every year that somebody is, or they might have a retention election, put a judge on the retention part and have that judge reviewed by other lawyers, primarily other judges, and exit interviews from people involved in cases where this judge was directing traffic, where this judge was in charge of the case. So at the end of everyone, they'll give you a questionnaire. How many people fill that out? Not very many. And how many lawyers fill it out depends on, what they're trying to do. There have been a couple of instances in Missouri where lawyers have made a targeted effort all the lawyers in that committee or in that community have made a targeted effort to get rid of some judges, but it's only done by lawyers. It's not done by the public. It's done by lawyers. And I believe at the direction of the Missouri Bar. Now, I can't prove any of that nonsense, but it only seems to be when lawyers are trying to get rid of a judge that perhaps it'll work and that people won't be retained, or there will be a vote, an election on it's just a yes or no. Do we retain this particular judge? But they'll put something out there and say, well, we recommend that you retain them always, unless they're intentionally trying to get rid of this judge. Or the local bar hates them so much that somebody starts a campaign to get rid of this judge. But it's not by election and finding another better judge. It puts you right back into the part of where the judge is appointed by the corrupt activities of this nonpartisan judicial selection process. So that's how that works. Well, this committee on the Client Security Fund is formulated and created the exact same way. They have a group of lawyers who've been selected by the bar that get to go after other lawyers, and at the OCDC, Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel, solicits complaints from any person who, when you lose your license, you have to provide a list of your prior clients. And so what the Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel does is they send out letters to all your former clients. If you're a dead guy, they go in and they find your records, and they may or may not send invitations to get money out, but they absolutely do against lawyers who have lost. So lawyers, if you don't know this, since it's not in any rule anywhere and you don't get to find out about it and how it will affect your career until much later, this is something that, but I guarantee you the Missouri Bar knows about it. I guarantee you the Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel knows about it, but it is an absolutely no rule. It is not in any reinstatement rule. Reinstatement rule is 5.28, and it has nothing, which it really is a Missouri Supreme Court rule, and it says nothing about a client security fund. In fact, it's nowhere listed, and you don't find out about it because you're not allowed to participate in the hearing processes when they have these alleged hearings where they provide a lawyer for the alleged wronged party and hear the story of the alleged wronged party, but not a word from the accused lawyer. Nothing. This would never happen in any other profession. Can you imagine where a doctor loses his license for who knows what? He loses his license, doesn't pay his taxes, and loses license. He, I don't know, has 3 DWIs and loses his license for a felony. And then he gets it reinstated. But while he is not practicing, right afterward, let's say that the doctor, some committee in the Board of Doctor Regulation that appointed itself without statute, without any rule, without any state authority, just a bunch of doctors getting together. They say, well, we're going to send letters to all of his past clients and ask them, if they think that we should pay them any money, and that he kept, he charged them too much money. He was unethical in some way, and we just send out solicitation letters asking for you to come forward and complain about something against this doctor. And then somebody came forward and said, man, he did a surgery for me a year ago, and he was supposed to save my toe from I don't know what, and instead I lost my toe, and my toe still doesn't work. And they go, oh geez, it sounds like a good story. We're going to give you all the money back for his wrongfully keeping money when you lost your toe in this deal. Would that make you think better of doctors in the state of Missouri? And yes, it would. Dear committee with no authority, and the doctor doesn't get to say a word about it. And I realize this is a ridiculous and facetious scenario, but it is what is happening in the state of Missouri with lawyers who are disappointed disciplined and then do not know that this sits out there, me being among them. Okay, and that story is part of a lawsuit that I took all the way to the United States Supreme Court that I want more people to know about. And I want people to realize that if, for example, because I'm licensed as a realtor, I'm licensed and I've been told by the state of Missouri when I applied for my realtor license that I was an upstanding citizen, thought well of by the community, thought well enough of to be given a license, that I was granted a license. 2 years later, or a year and a half later, I took the broker's exam and was told again that I was an upstanding citizen and that everything, that I had a good and ethical reputation in the community. And in between the day that I got my realtor license and the day that I got my broker's license, in between there, I was told by the Supreme Court of Missouri that I was unethical in some way, but they didn't say what it was. They just said I could not have my license. They don't have to give you a reason. Now, any other license process in the state of Missouri, if you're going to be a barber and you have to get a license and you send in your fees, you fill out the application and you send it in, you cannot just get back a no. You cannot just get back, we've thought about this and no, we're not going to let you be a barber. If you're a real estate agent and you fill out your paperwork and you submit it all and you're just the same as everybody else, the real estate commission cannot just willy-nilly refuse you licensure and say, no, we decided no. They have to outline very specific reasons that you cannot or should not be licensed. Very specific. And then you can fight those if you disagree with them at the Administrative Hearing Commission level. First, you'd appeal to the whole board, as I believe the process, and then you go to the Administrative Hearing Commission, and after that, you'd go to the Supreme Court of State of Missouri, who I guarantee you would not permit the executive branch to just tell a real estate person who applied for a real estate license to just say, no, we heard about you and we don't like you and therefore we're not going to give you a license. That would not be permitted, would not be allowed. The judicial branch would have a field day with that activity. However, they eagerly engage in such behavior themselves. If they deny a request for a lawyer's license, there's nobody that can say anything about it, and they just say no. You can't complain and say, hey, you've got to give me a reason at least. No, we're the Supreme Court of Missouri. We don't have to. And they create their own rules to regulate themselves, and there is nothing you can do about it. I know this personally because I wrote letters and emails to the House of Representatives Judiciary Committee containing 12, 15 members, don't remember for sure, sent them emails asking them to review, not a word. Had two people come back to me and tell me, one of them just wished me well. The other one, he was a lawyer, and so he didn't, but he knew me, and he called me and told me his name is Rudy Veet. And he called me and said, well, what's going on, Sam? Why can't you get your license? I told him the story. Never a word back. Not worth it. He didn't want to be targeted by the Missouri bar. He didn't want the Supreme Court after him because lawyers, like I said, you either want to be a non-interventionalist or you want to kiss the ass of power. If you wish to go somewhere, you have to kiss the ass of power, which is all embodied in the Missouri Bar Board of Governors or the Supreme Court. But even the Supreme Court has to kiss the ass of the Board of Governors because this Judicial Selection Committee also picks Missouri Supreme Court justices. So they're kind of beholden to these quacks who run the Missouri bar. So the most powerful organization in Missouri is not the governor. It is not the legislature. It is not the Supreme Court. It's the Missouri bar. Cannot be run by any one of those three organizations. They run the judiciary and they run the Supreme Court. And the executive branch, well, we can't do anything about it. The legislative branch, well, we can't do anything about it. Actually, they can. They just won't because they don't want to be attacked personally by a lot of them are lawyers. They don't want to be attacked personally by the bar, by the Supreme Court, and have their license taken away. And then when they try to get it back, just be told one word, no. The governor, he just doesn't know what the hell's going on. Most of them, and they don't know why it's like it is, but it's like it is. Most of them, and I don't understand why, they don't realize that all the legislature has to do is create a rule, create a law that says this is how create a law that says lawyers that are going to be reinstated, lawyers that are requesting a license. It's done in many other states. Lawyers that want a license have to follow the provisions of this statute. The court would have, and if the governor signed it, if they created a rule and the governor signed it, the court system would have to follow it. But they don't, because it's easier to just say, that's lawyers. We don't have anything to do with it. And from the point of view of the Supreme Court, they love it because they get to pick and choose. Well, the Missouri bar gets to pick and choose who they let back in. Supreme Court is subject to no one, even in Missouri, and they're not subject to anyone on the federal level either. Like the Supreme Court of the United States, nobody's in charge. They're in charge of themselves. So everywhere you go, you have this untouchable, unreachable, immovable judiciary that knows that nobody can touch them. Now, recently, there's been some activities on the Trumpsters' side to go after certain judges on the federal side, but people need to wake up to this on the state side, on the local side, that what is happening and why. Okay, it's happening because we allow it to happen. Just like there are no term limits. I don't think that judges should be appointed for life as they are on the federal level. I've been way against that. There are a couple of things to look at in that regard, a couple of cases to observe and review in that regard. But nobody ever talks about it. And they don't talk about it because we want to believe in our legal system. I don't believe in our legal system. Well, I believe in the system, but I don't believe in the people in it. I don't believe that the intentions or that the law is there. There are zero checks and balances in the judiciary. They're supposed to be checked and balanced by the other side or by the other two branches, but they are not, especially in Missouri. So in Missouri, nobody checks them. Nobody verifies that the judicial. What would be wrong? Nothing, by the way. But I'm asking you this so that you get to see the point. What would be wrong with the legislature saying Supreme Court judges can only hold office for no longer than 8 years? Then they're gone. Then they're out of there. And the governor signing that would mean they wouldn't be appointed for life, that they can be removed, right? If the legislator says, if a lawyer is going to get a license, they have so much time to review. So I've applied for my license since I lost it twice. Once immediately when I was eligible, I filed for it. And this is part of the scam that they can do because they know you can't do a damn thing about it and that they are the only branch that is untouchable, right? And what they do is if you request your license, they can just leave you in limbo forever. And this is what they do. So you file your license and they investigate you eternally. forever for a year and a half the first time. Year and a half. When you apply for your license the very first time, you fill out some paperwork, you send it in, and a decision is made between February, when the time frame, March, April, I think it is in Missouri. March, April, when you submit your license, until the time you take the bar exam in July. And before you take the bar exam, you will have an answer as to uh, whether or not you can take the bar, because they'll have to say that looks like you're going to be able to get a license or you're not. Now, if you've got a felony, if you got something else, there are strict guidelines as to what it is. Now, not so. There is no time limit. There, you can't do a freaking thing about it except be an impotent whiner, and you can bitch about it, which I do. But they can leave it sit, and they do, for a year and a half the first time, 2.5 years the second time, before they even said yes or no. Now, imagine if you've requested a license to become a bartender. And I don't know if you need a bartender license. I'm just using that as an example. To be a bartender in the state of Missouri. And the administrative branch, the executive branch who administers these licenses, just left it sit out there for 2.5 years, did some peripheral looking around, then held the application, put it on the approving authority's desk, and left it there for 18 months. Or worse, left it there for 2.5 years. Never a word to you, never nothing. You can't encourage them to move any faster, at least on the legal side. And they don't have to listen because they can't be touched. Do you think the judicial branch would turn around and go after somebody on the executive side who did that to someone selecting a license, trying to get a license? They absolutely would. And I'm sure they absolutely have. Now, I'm going to look for some case files to back that up, but I believe that they have. Okay. And imagine, if you will, that you're a real estate agent applying for a real estate license. You've applied and you've passed your test. I think it's the reverse in Missouri. I think you actually take the test and then you submit your license request after you've already met the testing requirements. Now you have to meet the alleged ethical requirements. Okay, so there's an application process and you fill it out and you send it in. Imagine, if you will, that you've gone to all this trouble to get your education, to be a realtor. You have taken the test and you've passed, and you submit your paperwork to a board and wait. A week goes by, 2 weeks go by, 3 weeks go by. Nobody's called, nobody's written, nobody's sent you a letter other than to say, we received your application. We'll get cracking on it. But cracking is their definition of cracking, not yours. Assume that you waited 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. At what point do you start to go, hey, come on, state of Missouri. Come on, get your heads out of your asses collectively and tell me what's going on. Oh, sir, gee, you had a DWI 5 years ago, and, we're considering. Well, how long are you going to consider? Well, till we're done considering. Okay, 6 months goes by, 7 months goes by. What is a reasonable period of time to wait when there is no additional information forthcoming? There is nothing else. There's not even a deadline for when they have to get the information together, I suppose. But can they just eternally investigate you and say, well, this is under investigation. We're investigating right now, but we haven't really gotten around to finishing that up. Just remain patient. Government's on your side. We're here waiting for you. How long do you wait? So at what point, somewhere in that point, 18 months, 2.5 years, whichever one it is, somewhere in that point, you're going to get tired of it. And you're going to say, Who's your boss? Who can I see? The executive branch isn't issuing me a license. The state, let me go to the legislative branch. Let's go to the legislative branch and go, can't you put a rule in place? Can't you legislate something to force or is there legislation already that you've implemented and the governor has signed that turns it into a law that says they can't do this to me and make me wait 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 18 months? Isn't there something like that, for God's sake? That would be calling making the legislative branch create it. In the legislative branch, some senator out there is going to go, you know what? We should create a new law about this. Why don't we create a law? Let's get the governor to sign something. This is BS. You can't wait that long. What is due process? How long does due process take when you're waiting for a license, right? When is this due process finally kick in for us when we're forced to consider and say either yes or no? Because if it says no, you get an appeal process. You get to go somewhere. You get to the next level, but you can't just leave it sit out there. And by the way, if you're a lawyer, there is no next level. Okay. First, whoever this investigator is investigating on behalf of the Missouri Supreme Court just leaves it sit out there. Then the Supreme Court can leave, even if the investigation was done in 2 weeks and it's just been sitting there, the Supreme Court can consider forever. There's no time limit for the Missouri Supreme Court. So couldn't you then, in the separation of powers, say, that just ain't right? And some legislative branch weenie like Rudy Veit or Justin Hill, I think his name was Justin Hill, or any of the people that sit on the Judiciary Committee for the House of Representatives, couldn't they then create a new law or a new, a new statute that would force the Supreme Court to act, to either say yes or no, and perhaps give some, there is no appeal process. There is nothing. You can only appeal to the United States Supreme Court, and they aren't going to do anything because they don't screw around with what's going on in the states, especially when it comes to lawyers. They don't want anything to do with it. And we could talk about the Feldman case forever, and what the very limited time when they've ever done anything for lawyer cases, when somebody's going to be submitted, when somebody's going to apply to get a license in a particular state. They rarely do anything about it at the Supreme Court. In fact, almost never. In fact, there aren't a lot of cases that go there because everybody knows that once you get to the state that the federal government's not going to interfere, they just say no. No, we're not going to touch it. That'll be a different story for a different day because I went all the way to Supreme Court. I can tell you about that later, trying to hopefully prove something, not prove, but make some changes in some of these issues. And I'm correct. You can listen to any of this stuff and I'm correct. And because everybody knows that this is wrong. It's just everybody also knows that they want to be able to keep this sort of, they wouldn't want it to happen to them. But as long as they're on the other side or on the catbird seat, they're the ones making the decision. They're the ones sending letters to whoever former client, to whichever, then nobody's going to bitch about it. Everybody's all for it, right? So, but anyway, that is the nature of the beast for this getting your license back. That is it. Now, I also started talking a little bit about this client security fund, and I've talked about it before at length in a couple of other shows, and so I won't go too far into it, but I think people should be aware that this client security fund is out there. Lawyers should be aware of it. And, the public should be aware of it. If somebody dies, you can get all kinds of free money from, whatever lawyer, you see something in the newspaper, the lawyer has died. You should go write a letter and say, yep, he was my lawyer last week. I gave him $10,000 and he's dead now. I want it back. Because they're not going to look. It's some unregulated bar committee. And there's nobody there to go against you. Doesn't matter. There's nobody on the other side. And these guys aren't trying. They're out there. Their stated goal, the stated goal is to try to get the public to feel good about lawyers and the practice of law in the state of Missouri. What? Is that your job, Missouri Bar? You're supposed to be out there trying to make sure the public feels good about lawyers because people crack lawyer jokes all the time. This is the reason why people crack lawyer jokes, because for whatever smarts you may think you have, you agree to idiotic examples of doing the right thing for all the wrong reasons, or with zero oversight. And you don't want any oversight. God forbid there should be any oversight on your part. Who is the oversight for the Missouri Bar? Somebody, anybody, tell me who it is. It's not the Supreme Court. They have zero power over the Missouri Bar. None. It is not the legislative branch. It's only a quasi administrative agency. That's what's been ruled in certain cases, at least in other states. Might it be in Missouri too by now? I don't know. But a bar organization is called a quasi, a sort of administrative agency. So administrative agencies are ruled by what? They are ruled by regulation. There's regulations put into place, and these regulations have to be put out, have to have time for public comment, have to have time for review and time for consideration, and then they're put into place. Not so for Missouri bar rules. They're agreed upon by some board of governors appointed by itself to do whatever it feels like doing, and nobody is in charge of it. There is zero oversight, none. They work for themselves, and they're more powerful than the Supreme Court of Missouri. That's a fact. And they appoint the Supreme Court judges. They pick them, usually from among their own numbers, from among their own inbred group of people that have, kissed the ass of the bar for the longest time, or their educational counterparts in large institutions of education on the state side in Missouri. And that is how the process works. And people need to realize it because far too many people do not. I believe I'm going to end on that note today. Let's get into the client security fund and how it works. No, we're going to do that another day. But I appreciate those of you who did listen. This will be out on International Flavor as a podcast. You can follow me at internationalflavor.com and download all my past podcasts. You can listen to me every day, Sunday through Thursday, on damradio.com at 9 p.m. Central Time in Missouri. Do you know what? I think I'm going to tell some more stories. I like telling stories. I think I'm going to do a half hour so I can use this to fill in if I have anything this week that I've got to do. I don't know if any of you remember this, but many years ago, when I was a lawyer that just had started out in Missouri, I was working for the law firm of Curtis Hanrahan. Curtis Hanrahan was the lawyer. Jefferson City, Curtis Hanrahan. I worked for myself for a little bit, trying to figure out, how to make money as a lawyer when I first started in 2001. And I ran into Curtis. I liked him. He liked me. We came up with a plan to work together, and I started working with him. And things went pretty well. While I was working there, we got to know each other pretty well, and we were partners for from 2001. Well, we worked together from 2001 to 2008, maybe early 2009. And then I decided to move to the lake. We thought we were going to open another firm down there and expand, and it just didn't work out that way. We were both going through personal issues or whatever at the time. I had a nasty divorce going on, and he had his own issues that I don't know or want to get into. But we had a few issues in that time. We never did it. Now, but during the time I worked with Curtis between 2001 and 2007, we were more me than him because he just dumped it on me. And I thought it would be something entertaining to do. And we worked on cases that were not so popular um, in the area, suing police, um, suing, uh, I don't know, municipal agencies. So uh, the first case was a case um, regarding a guy named Mike Eisenberg. And that was and I mean it's an old case, and what's really funny is none of it can be found right now. None. And they're just they do not these cases disappeared. And so what I want to do uh, is go back and try to find it and see what happened to it. That would to see what happened to this particular case. And I want to know because it's pretty funny. I've gone out and tried to find this anything related to this case, and it's been. I think it's all gone. I think it's been scrubbed. I think these cases are just gone, and I think they don't exist anymore. And I want to know why and find out where they went, and that would be entertaining to say the least. And find out where this is. Nope, there is nothing there, and it's it's wow, it is quite a surprise to me that it is not there. So we're going to run a query again because we sued Mike Eisenberg, and it let's see. Well, let's look up one of the cities that was involved in the case and see if Boonville. Here's city of Boonville, Missouri, as a party, and see when some of these cases showed up. And because I think it is certainly interesting to know whether this case just disappeared or what. There it is. Uh-huh. Here it is. Filed in 212 of 2004. And here it is, where somebody filed suit in here's this Michael Eisenberg. And finally I found the lawsuit. And here is the complaint that that it's very good to see. It has how many pages? It has 14 total pages. Let's see this document because this obviously is going to have to be included in my in my um, in my AI knowledge. You know, I need to keep this in my AI because something is nutty on this. That because you can't. There is no news on this nowhere in the uh, nowhere in the history of the Times, I'm sorry, the Jefferson City News Tribune, not one story on Mike Eisenberg, not one. When you do a search online, you can't find them. They're gone. How does that happen? How can you not find a story in the News Tribune about Mike Eisenberg when he was sued? How many times? I mean, a buttload. And it is crazy to me that you can't find any of them even now, because Eisenberg is listed in there, but his name doesn't show up as a party. Isn't that nuts? That it's but if you type in Boonville, his it'll show up, and you put I'm sorry, in I spelled it wrong, but if you look up in Boonville, you can find City of Boonville, and Mike Eisenberg, and the City of Boonville still shows up, but Eisenberg, his name is on here, but you can't do a search against him, right? You can't do it. You can't find. Here's Hale versus Eisenberg, Isenberg. And there's a bunch of Chisholm, Kimball, Allen versus Eisenberg, Baker versus Eisenberg. There were several different cases, most of them in the 2004 timeframe, late 2003 timeframe. And let's have a look at one of them and see what it says, or do a different query and run this instead for Eisenberg instead, and see what this shows up with instead. Eisenberg Michael. Here it is. There are how many cases related to him? Baker, Hale, Allen, Chisholm, Hale again, Stanley, Carwile, Webster, Turner, and Brown. The last one closed in 2007. And all of these cases, this Brown versus Haymeyer was a lawsuit against Eisenberg. I don't know why he would be included in there, but there was another. I wonder what that case is. Might be interesting to know. Let's see here. History documents. And let's find out who is being sued here in this complaint. Let us find the document and view it. This one has 2 pages. And we don't need this 2-page civil cover sheet. We need the 11 pages of document. And this document is who versus Eisenberg? No, this is Brown versus Haymeyer. Now, Haymeyer used to be a judge, okay? I'm sorry, a sheriff. And that he was the judge when Mike Eisenberg was there, was in this drug task force as the sheriff, working with the sheriff. And so perhaps that could be an interesting case to go into. And I want to go into a couple of more and talk about this because all of these things disappeared. I want to include them in my AI so AI can go and search these things out and find out what went on in these cases and that I filed and what I alleged, and show that some of these things are out there. But I became kind of popular as far as filing these type of lawsuits during the time because nobody else would, right? Nobody would file these type of lawsuits. They just didn't get filed all that often. Nobody went after the state of Missouri. Nobody went after former, sheriffs or sheriff's department people. Nobody did those kind of things. And you wouldn't because of qualified immunity. Qualified immunity, which grants them the way to get out. Now, Mike Eisenberg, we could get past qualified immunity because he had done some illegal things. He had done some things, criminal things. And so we were able, those things obviously aren't within your bailiwick of things that you're allowed to do as a police officer if they're illegal, like planting drugs on people and whatnot. And they had video of him. They hired some other one of the other drug task force people had video of him doing it, had evidence of him doing it. So there was plenty of bad things to go around. And so Judge Brown brought in all these people, dismissed all their cases. And then we got to sue Mike Brown. So that's kind of what put me on the map for that. And suing in the Eisenberg matter, me being nobody, it was easy for me to take it. And Curtis didn't really want to do it, but he did want to do it. So he kind of pawned it all off on me. And Curtis, God love him, was just a guy who he didn't want to work that hard. And he didn't want to do it. And I don't think he knew much about federal court anyway. But I learned quite a bit about federal court through this court process and all of these cases that were filed, most of them by me. And some were filed, some were not filed. And I'm glad I found them in the case file or in the court's documents, because I was trying to find them on the websites for Missouri or Jefferson City News Tribune. And let's have a look again and see if it's because I spelled it wrong, and see if there's any stories about Mike Eisenberg in the News Tribune. Cohen Michael Eisenberg of Halen died on 2014. Well, I hope that's not him. It says there's a Michael that passed away. Here's one. Well, there's very few that have results with Eisenberg, and very few. And so there are no stories about Eisenberg. They just, I find that rather strange that they don't exist. I wonder, and I tried through AI to find it too, and it didn't exist. So what does that tell you? Do you think that there's somebody out there who has the ability to take things off of the radar? I bet there is. We're going to try from 1/1/2003 to 1/1/2006 and see if the Jefferson City News Tribune has anything related to it. Nope. And I can't believe that, because there were stories about it. I do not believe that not one story from the News Tribune is published. Not one. I can't imagine that it doesn't exist. But it truly doesn't. Wow. I am in shock. So, I don't know. Let's see. Well, let's clear it again and do some more tools and put in Missouri as the place that we are trying to find and see what happens. I'm not sure that there'll be anything all that different. And let's see. Just out of curiosity, I think I'm going to find out who that is and see if, there's anything there. I don't know. Nope, there's nobody here. Wow, is that incredible or what? No news regarding anything on Eisenberg. Sorry, I'm babbling now, and I get it, and I apologize for that. But I was also doing some research at the time. I think that is certainly strange that none of these stories exists, that they're all gone. So I think certainly we need to review some of that and see what and where they are, uh, where any of these documents are. I find this just crazy. And let's open up the Hale versus Eisenberg document and see what the allegations were way back when, because this was a big case. So the Mike Heisenberg individually, John Haymeyer, the sheriff, Cole County, Missouri, Mustang Drug Task Force, Jefferson City, all of these were members of a Mustang Drug Task Force. And basically, violations, jurisdiction, parties, then. So basically, here's the story. At all times relevant to the action, Michael Eisenberg was an employee of Cole County Sheriff and acted as an agent of the Mid-Missouri Unified Strike Team and Narcotics Group, an unincorporated association made up of the following governmental members. So it's a Mustang, and Mustang is an acronym: Missouri Unified Strike Team and Narcotics Group, Mustang. Cole County Sheriff's Office, Jefferson City Police Department, Missouri State Highway Patrol, Boone County Sheriff's Department, Columbia Police Department, Fulton, Missouri Police Department, Booneville, Missouri Police Department, Callaway County Sheriff's Office. So, we talk about all the defendants in this case and who we sued. Doesn't make you very popular when you sue everybody in your community. So, and that's what I did. Let's see. All of the conduct of defendant, blah, blah, blah. His conduct was performed. Facts common. On October 11, 2002, plaintiff was investigated. That's this client, Hale, and was investigated and arrested for a drug crime in Cole County, Missouri. Ms. Hale was never charged with a crime as a result of the drug arrest, but defendant Eisenberg made a report after her arrest to the Division of Family Services in Cole County. And then he reported it later to the Callaway County DFS, informing DFS, that's Division of Family Services, that Ms. Hale possessed cocaine and methamphetamine. This report led to the Division of Family Services removing plaintiff's minor child from her home. Defendant Eisenberg falsified warrant applications, police reports, and other records that contributed to the arrest, the filing of criminal charges, and or conviction of plaintiff. And he manipulated facts regarding the plaintiff to ensure that her child was removed from her home. So I sued against that, but in each one of these, he did that on behalf of this Mustang Drug Task Force. And this was not a good guy. And I went after him. And, because it was me, Curtis Hanrahan, our office that went after him. And so this story is one that was settled and resolved. And it's pretty funny that it is nowhere in any public place that you can find it anymore, unless you are able to get into the Western District of Missouri ECF system, electronic filing system, basically. Electronic court filing system is what that's called. And on the federal level, if you're going to file an action on the federal level, you have to have access to file. You can get a public one, and a lot of people do. And you can get those. But all these things, how do you keep these things? How do you only archive them if somebody has to go to the library and look at the newspaper on one of those poll things, That's how you got to find anything about Mike Eisenberg, I guess, because suddenly there is zero on the internet about any of these cases. That seems rather strange to me. If you go out and you search for Samuel Trapp right now, I guarantee you'll find stories about me. And those stories are going to be public, prevalent everywhere, because they want everybody to know I'm a quack, that I'm a nut job. And I'm not a quack or a nut job. I just tend to say the things as I call them. And I call them like I see them. Friends and neighbors, that's exactly what I do. So I think I'm going to discuss more about this Michael Eisenberg case. I'm going to go ahead and download all of those and talk about what I did and how I came to the attention of the state of Missouri, because I also did several lawsuits against the state of Missouri, the prison system. I went against Cole County for jail conditions wherein there were girls being used basically as the sex toys for some of the guards. And I did these cases personally and went into these cases personally and checked them out. And not enough is told of these things, but I think that more should be told because not enough people do it. Had I known then what I know now, I would have. I'd be a millionaire. I would have done things differently. But remember, in these cases, the state, any defense on the other side is always going to twist this. They're going to say, "So he lied about this Eisenberg," and they did. They say, "Oh, so he lied about the planting of evidence." But what can you prove that he lied? Can you prove? And most of these people are people who have criminal records before, and so they're substandard people. Eisenberg was a cop at the time he did it. So even though he was a criminal too and created all these lies and destroyed people's lives because of these lies and because of planting false evidence and because of doing all these things, so much so that a judge overturned all these convictions, they still point to the fact that these are less than perfect people who are filing suit against, oh, geez, poor Mike. Poor Mike. He didn't know. Remember my analysis of uh, qualified immunity that we went through the other day? And if you can't find that, it's out there on my website. And we'll talk about that some more, should you like. And we can talk about that as we go along, as it comes up. I hope that we do, and that we put more into it. I want to talk about this thing. In fact, I get pretty worked up over this sort of thing because I do like talking about it. I think that it's a very important topic these days. When I got started on today's show here, I wanted to showcase how lawyers are treated differently than anyone else. Okay. Now you don't have to feel sorry for lawyers. You certainly don't have to feel sorry for me because I deserved to be, what do you call it? Suspended. I don't deserve to be suspended because they don't suspend anyone else for similar activities, but I get that. Okay. There were things that I could have done better and I wasn't paying enough attention. I get that. Okay. I get that you could come after me and suspend me, but what I don't get is destroying my life over it, over these infractions, over these small things. I never stole from anybody. I didn't take anything from anybody. I didn't do anything bad to any former client. And I was never charged with doing anything from any former client, except when they tried to say that I took my client's house. I did not. I took his mother's house, and I'm perfectly fine doing that. That I don't care. And the Missouri Supreme Court ruled in my favor on that because they should. You can't say that the Missouri Supreme Court is all bad. You can say that they're certainly twisted and they don't have any power of their own. It's only granted to them by the Missouri bar. At least, certainly they take their own power and they don't control the Missouri bar. Missouri bar controls them, and that is bad. And they have no oversight by the Judiciary Committee. What's the Judiciary Committee done? Seriously, why don't we do a review of what the Judiciary Committee has done? They certainly didn't do anything when I approached them on the Judiciary Committee. All they are is a budget group that talks about expenditures that they want to have and anything they, what are we going to do to make sure that all this filing gets done okay? And how can we give more money to the Supreme Court to do more things, right? That's it. But they don't have any sort of regulatory impetus or any sort of regulatory desire over the Supreme Court of Missouri. And that is the problem, friends and neighbors. That is the bad part. There was one other thing I wanted to talk to one about today, and I only have 5 minutes, and it was something short, but I can't find it. on what it was I wanted to talk about. Son of a nutcracker. I can't get there. Um, and blah blah blah. Nothing coming so far. Um, oh, I find it pretty funny. I tried to look today for a case. Okay, here's a case. Guy named D. Wampler. Okay, I was punished for BS reasons. This guy, this guy never even had a trust account, didn't do anything, and it was alleged some very bad things against this guy. Listen to what the Supreme Court says about this yahoo. Okay, and D. Wampler practiced a long time in the Springfield, and D. Wampler was well liked by those in the Supreme Court. He'd been around and he was very well connected. He's one of those, he is not Samuel Trapp. He was very, very well connected. Judges in federal and state court, and nobody wanted to see him get in trouble. And that's how our legal system works, especially in Missouri. If you don't want to get somebody in trouble, here's the following order for how you take somebody who's violated rules, like D. Wampler, some of the same rules that I allegedly violated, but he really did. Here you go. And this is from 30th of July, 2019. Now this day, and it's Supreme Court of Missouri, case number SC, Supreme Court 98004, In re D-D-E-E, Wampler, W-A-M-P-L-E-R, Missouri bar number 19046. Now this day, the court being sufficiently advised of and concerning the premises and having considered the stipulation, meaning they had an agreement, I got no agreement, and statement of acceptance of the disciplinary hearing panel decision filed by the party. I didn't even get considered for that. There was zero. They wouldn't even talk to me. They just wanted to destroy me. But this guy, he did 10 times worse than I ever did. And boy, he gets a stipulation. And the OCDC bends over and kisses his ass trying to help him stay in, but not me, not on my side. The court finds that respondent D. Wampler violated rules 4.4-1.4, 4-1.1, 4-1.15a, 4-1.15c, 4-1.15f of the rules of professional conduct and should be disciplined. Upon consideration of these findings, previous decisions of this court, ABA standards for imposing lawyer discipline, and aggravating and mitigating circumstances, this court suspends respondent's license indefinitely. However, get this suspension is stayed, and respondent is placed on probation for 3 years from the date of this order in accordance with Rule 5.225. The conditions of probation are those included in the decision of the disciplinary hearing panel filed within. By the way, this panel on me decided or offered this, probation, and the Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel said, absolutely not. He needs to lose his license, right? Should probation be revoked and suspension take effect, no petition for reinstatement shall be entertained for a period of 3 years from the date of the suspension becoming effective. Fee pursuant to blah, blah, blah in the amount of $1,500 payable to the clerk of this court to the credit of the advisory committee. I had to pay $1,000 when they suspended me. But he was suspended, but probation for this guy. And I read the order once, or this stipulation that they filed, and the stipulation was basically, oh, geez, he's a good guy. I'm a good guy. Why don't I get the same consideration? Well, because Sam Phillips, he didn't like me. He's this corrupt dude from the Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel. And he likes to go after people like me, and said specifically he was going to destroy me. Well, friends and neighbors, that's the end of today's show. I like to keep it to an hour and a half. I'm glad that we got through it. Sorry I tended to ramble just a little bit through this scenario, but sometimes I do that. I'm glad you listened anyway. Follow my program at internationalflavor.com. Follow me on YouTube, International Flavor English, and also listen to me Sunday through Thursday, nightly at 9 p.m. on damradio.com. Have a very good evening, and thank you.